Okay, I think we have Bradley here. All right.
Hey there.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. All right. Okay, now I've manually tuned down the jazz music. Cool. Awesome. I think we can kick off the Twitter space. Well, welcome to the Web3 Social Club. This is a Twitter space series by Mask Network, where we invite projects and builders who are building the next generation of social networks and infrastructure to share their insights. So thank you all for being here. I'm your host today, He He. I lead global growth at NextID, a self-sovereign identity protocol aggregating users Web2 and Web3 identities with strong cryptographic proofs developed by Mask Network. And so our topic today is in the Elon's era, how can we decentralize Twitter? So exactly, I think 2 weeks into, today is 2 weeks into the acquisition of Twitter, the Web3 space, we've seen a lot of discussions and dramas on this topic. So first of all, we have friends from Lens. We know Stanley from Lens got banned and then unbanned from Twitter. And then I think just yesterday, Bankless YouTube account got banned and then unbanned. But even long before all of this kind of drama and saga, I think the Web3 builders recognize that platforms today hold too much power to control the freedom of speech and are stifling the innovation of third-party developers. And that's why we want to set up an occasion like this Twitter space to fully discuss how we can make social networks more fair and open using Web3 technologies and inviting the pioneers in the space. So we're super excited to have the leaders and founders of 4 distinct Web3 social projects joining us today. We've got Christina from the head of growth from Lens, Bradley, growth manager from Lens as well, strong representation from Lens Protocol. And then we also have Joshua, the founder of RSS3, Suji, the founder of Mask Network, Shugo, the founder of Phi, and Shun from the founder of Light with us today. Why don't we start by just a round of introduction of your projects, who you are and your projects, and some of the exciting latest updates from our speakers. We can start with Christina. Yeah.
Hey, thanks so much for having us. Very excited to be here. My name's Christina. I lead growth for the Aave companies. One of our focus products is obviously Lens Protocol, which is our social media protocol that the company has been working on for the last, I would say, 12 plus months. So it's very rewarding to see, social media and social summer in the spotlight now, but it is something that has been, actively built on by the Aave companies for a long time now. And so, Aave, we are a Web3, software company, and we obviously started with the DeFi protocol, with the concepts around owning custody of your financial assets, and we're taking a lot of these concepts now to your social graph, being able to own your audience and to own your content. And I actually came from TikTok, where I spent 2+ years there, seeing the growth of what was a new primitive with video and social media, when people thought Instagram had its moat and that it would never be disrupted. And so I do think that the space that Web3 moves at, there is an opportunity for Lens Protocol to really be a disruptor. And Bradley Freeman, who I'll pass the mic over to now, we actually worked together at TikTok, and he's come across to really spearhead growth for Lens Protocol.
Yeah, so I think Christina covered it quite well, but Lens is super exciting. It seems like the next big step in social media. As Christina mentioned, Christina and I co-created TikTok's NFT drop, which was all about helping creators monetize and own their relationships with their followers. And I'm very excited to see that Lens is really like in the same mission in perhaps a much more robust and flexible way. So really excited to be here.
Awesome! It's really excited to have both Christina and Bradley on this space. I actually, my first startup was also competitive of TikTok, so really excited to kind of like see more social veterans moving from Web 2 to Web 3. And then maybe let's go with Joshua from RSS3.
All right, thank you. So this is Joshua from RSS3. Basically, we're an information distribution protocol. You can get it by the name. So what we do is that we realize that there's going to be lots of different content creating protocols on Web3. It's not going to be like only one or two. It's going to be a lot. So we believe that when you see informations stored on decentralized networks, could be a blockchain, it could be a decentralized network that's not a blockchain. So scattered around, we believe it's an awesome possibility for us to build something like an aggregation standard, and then have this new aggregation layer that actually gets all the data and then distribute in a specific way according to developer and users' need. So that's why we started with RC3. Basically, right now you can think of it just like the feed of Web3. So if you're trying to get a feed of someone's, specific updates, you want to get the feed of all the people you cared about. So RC3 is the way to go. Basically, you will be able to generate or like build things like NFT trackers, mirror readers. Possibly, of course, we support lanes. That's a brilliant protocol. So you can get lanes content, mirror content, and all NFT updates and donation updates from RC3 at the same time. So that's an aggregated feed, and yeah. So basically, we have something around 20 applications using RC3 with more than 100 million requests per month. Thank you.
Awesome. Great to have you, Joshua. RSS3 is also a great partner of Mass Network. So we're really excited about also some of the upcoming partnerships that you're gonna see in both our products. Next, I would like to invite.
Hello. Suji here. I'm founder of Mass Network. So Mass Network is aimed to build the leading Web3 social protocol and the bridge between the Web2 and the Web3. So when we started this product back in 2018, there's not really a lot. There's probably just one or two Web3 social attempts out there. The difference is like we believe people might not likely to leave Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok completely. They probably just gonna, just like you still have phone, right? So you still have like mobile phone number. You still have to use the Windows, which is monopolized software. It's more likely the Web3 can happen in an over top way. So we built a mass network. More specifically, you can just enjoy using Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever social network you're using, but simultaneously you own your self identity, and you're able to enjoy your Web3 features, and eventually you will merge yourself and upgrade yourself from Web2 to Web3. So in 2019 we released the first version, and 2020 there's many interesting happened, right? The DeFi summer, and during the DeFi summer we have the before the DeFi summer, we have the Red Pocket Lucky Drop with the Tale, with MakerDAO, and people were like, "Oh, okay, you can send money on Twitter now." Now we have tipping. Then later on, we have donating to Gitcoin. You can buy NFT on Twitter. You can trade token on Twitter. You can trade whatever, maybe on Instagram as well. So that's just some of the features are embedded and powered by Mass Network. But indeed, we want to collaborate with other protocols that's doing Web3 social or different features of Web3 and put them together and empower the Web2 and eventually dilute the value of Web2. So the more you use Mass Network on platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the more value you're actually migrating yourself gradually into Web3. Because obviously they don't know you're just trading and you're buying some random NFT. They don't know you're using maybe Lens protocol to replicate your Twitter social graph, or maybe use RSS3 to build your own social feed. That's the Mass Network. We view ourselves the bridge and the universal middleware between the Web2 and the Web3, and especially for the social network. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Suji, who's also my boss. And a shameless plug for those that haven't tried out Mass Network. since we're already on top of Twitter, you can try it out and see how it kind of creates a new layer on top of your Twitter interface. So next, I would love to invite Shun from Light to share, your project.
Hi, I'm Shen. Nice to meet you guys. I'm working on Light. Light is like a social discovery layer for Web3. It enables you to discover connections on Web3 that wasn't kind of like possible before. With Light, you can kind of like discover through mutual DAOs that you have contributed with, gather around like your mutual like NFT collections or like past common property events that you can attend to. And users can also see like an aggregated profile of your activity of your wallet, showcasing your identity across the metaverse on off-chain, cross-chain, on-chain. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shun. It's for like I would recommend people to check out like light.so, like light.so. I've used it to like search up and follow a lot of people using your platform.
Thank you.
Yeah, a big fan. Yeah, and next I want to introduce Shugo to introduce Phi, which is also personally a project I'm a big fan of.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm Shugo. Nice to meet you guys. And good morning. Like I'm building like Phi, PHI, and it's kind of like the visualizing like people's launching activity as a metaverse. So that's where like we're providing or like virtual land. So based on your ENS domain, and also like they're providing a bunch of objects, and every object tied to your some launching activity history. Yeah, so kind of the project. So that's where like you can grow your land. So with your launching activity and the ENS domain. So that's where like the URL will show your on-chain activity and your network, your social graph, and also your community and your personality by using on-chain activity. So yes, that kind of like project. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shugo. I think it's just super fun to see kind of how my social graph is like visualized on Phi. Yeah. Great. Yeah. So, like following our topic today, like, about decentralizing Twitter, I'm just curious, and this is, let's make this like kind of a open conversation. So if you have any thoughts, like feel free to jump in. I just want to hear like your reactions to the Twitter acquisition, and has it impacted your project roadmap since then? If so, like in what way? Yeah. Maybe we can start with Christina and Brad from Lens.
Yeah, so the Elon acquisition of Twitter hit pretty close to home for the Lens gang, notably because, as some folks may know already, Stani, our founder, was tweeted jokingly that he was becoming the interim CEO of Twitter, and then he posted another tweet shortly after that. They both went pretty viral, and then we all woke up in the morning, he was banned from Twitter. And we thought, oh no, that's terrible. And then we thought, wait a minute, this is kind of illustrating the case for why an alternative to a centralized platform like Twitter might be necessary. People have, over the last 10 years of using social media, come to understand certain issues that revolve on social media, right? Like issues of free speech and moderation, issues of being, these products try to maximize the time you spend on their platforms so they can sell your data to advertisers. And so these issues are starting to bubble up and become more part of like common discourse, which I think is a productive thing because it tees up the conversation for what a decentralized alternative might look like, and the problems that exist with centralized platforms like Twitter, like TikTok, like YouTube, and others. Christine, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think, we take for granted that our digital personas and our relationships online have become even more important than, our IRL engagements. And so, being deplatformed has, it removes your access to your community. And so that's something we feel very passionate about with Lens Protocol, being able to give people custody and ownership of their social graph. And Stani he had the funny, Bankless episode where he was in jail, but I think he actually felt like he was in jail because he had lost access to his audience and to be able, even to his DMs, right? And so the fact that these platforms and there's only a concentrated few, have the ability to kind of, put us in jail and keep us away from our communities is something that that needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all like kind of, well, Stani did a good job. First of all, like making that post, so we're like all like very surprised, and then a few hours later he was gone, and then he was back. It was I think a lot of the real life illustrations of why we need a more decentralized and kind of platform independent social networks moving forward. Yeah.
I was just gonna add quickly, like we talk a lot in Web3, like, not your keys, not your crypto. I think an extension of that applied to social media is if you don't own, I'm still working on the pithy sentence of this, but if you don't own your content or your network, you're prone to having it be removed from you, as we're seeing. And so people should bring, I think, those same expectations they now have or starting to have for crypto and self-custodying, your assets. That should apply to media content too. People who make videos on YouTube, those are their assets that they seek to monetize or build a fan following or business or brand around. And I think, Lens is a way to do that. And so I just think that's like something familiar to the Web3 world that can be applied here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of, I think, content, I know RSA3 is working on the kind of content aggregation. So Joshua, what are some of the reactions on your team, and how has that impacted your roadmap in any way?
I mean, I think the interesting here is that it does as a possibility, whereas Twitter could be more open and decentralized and permissionless. I think a very interesting thing to notice is that, about, I don't remember, like 20 years before, when Twitter was first born, it was supporting RSS and was more like a protocol in the beginning. There was a time when there were more RSS reader clients and users than Twitter users. But later on, when Twitter got more popular, they stopped supporting RSS and started to be more centralized. And anyone who works on getting Twitter's content and information data, they would know that Twitter is now a pain in the ass. You need to apply for the API keys, and it's really troublesome. You got to do a lot of applications and try to explain what you're going to do with that. One of the things that did happen, that's just really good, was that we see now. I think it was just last week Twitter started to shipping out alpha testings for a more open and permissionless API. I mean, like, it's not like a huge step towards something we call Web3, because it's not decentralized, it's not that permissionless, it's not on chain, it's not on any of the decentralized networks, but that's a good starting point. I mean, like, if they can, in a way, have their data more open, then we would be able to see more things built upon it. I mean, like, for us, so we apparently some of the scenarios using scenarios for artistry does require Twitter content, but we do have some big updates regarding this. So I think we will be releasing that updates in several days. We believe it's even more important to make sure that there are more content happening on decentralized networks, that you actually own it. Right, just like what Lens tries to build here. So we started the whole process, and the whole train of Web3 is about making something that was a service before into something like an asset. right? So money was, a service from a state or a country. Now it's decentralized. It's self custodial. This kind of self custodial, this kind of asset, and we want to make sure that data and content, same thing happens on data and content. So we will focus more on, supporting more content on decentralized networks. We will, have new ways to help people to make sure that their tweets are owned by them. But we will be continuously focusing on how we aggregate and distribute data and information. Yeah, that's things happening at RSS3.
Yeah, awesome. Excited to hear that. And speaking of, I think you mentioned tweet ownership, or like kind of encrypted tweet is one of the, I think, main features of Mask network. So Suji, could you share some of your reactions and thoughts on the acquisition? And I know you've been traveling, so things that you've heard recently, discussions with folks in the space.
I'd say I'm surprised it's Elon, right? But it's not surprise to me that Elon, but Twitter is gonna go to somehow Web3 or going to be acquired by a third-party investor and try to make it Web3. At first, the stock is 10 there for like 10 years, right? The only pump is when Donald Trump was tweeting every day. But when we dig back to the Twitter history, Joshua mentioned the the RSS feed, right? The reason is that Twitter was the whole idea of Twitter was incubated from a podcast company. When these early guys were doing podcasts, and then Jed Dorsey was an engineer, was the first employee there, and then they figured out, it's better to have something like Twitter and it's being as a company. And there's many OGs in that company also become an investor of Twitter. Later on, still back Jack in his new company called Square, right? So because we have Greg Kidd as one of our investor, and he's the first check of Twitter and Square. And I did talk to Blue Sky very often back in 2019 when Jack announced he wanted to do Blue Sky. We are also one of the founding community member. I think I feel the pain in the ass, and then I also can feel why it's so slow, right? I feel the pain in the ass, like even Jack is a little bit maxi on Bitcoin. We all see that the problem on Web2 is kind of like it's not going to be fixed by itself. It's going to always exist there, right? And as the founder, as the CEO, you have liability. There's a lot of terrible things happen just because it's designed like that. And on the other side, once you announce something like you want to do Blue Sky, other activist investor, in the case of Twitter in 2019, 2020, the Elon management bought $1 billion just to try to remove Jack from the CEO and put someone to do more ads. Obviously, that's not the ideal way we want to see Twitter. Right. So yeah, I can see the pain, and I think it's also true for many Web2 company. Christine mentioned TikTok, right? It's also I can feel the tension we want to chat with other TikTok previous team member, or even the current leadership team in TikTok. It's a lot of battle within, and especially we heard the news Instagram can support NFT, but they're gonna read the data from Web3, but not gonna put the data on the blockchain, right? It's a different thing. It's going to read what's happening in the blockchain or Web3, but it's not going to integrate with your own social network and give user the ownership. No, it's different. So I'd say jumping is a good thing. At least someone saw the problem. Even if you use Dogecoin, it's still good because it's still a cryptography. It's still cryptography independent blockchain. It goes its own public key, private key. Still give people some kind of data sovereignty. And I'm become more chain agnostic, even though back in the days I was really East Maxi. But I'm become more cross chain or multi chain agnostic. So I think the future is everyone should somehow own some kind of cryptographic ID. No matter it's ceramic or something we're doing Connect ID, or maybe you just use your Dogecoin, Dogecoin DID, and deeply integrate with the current social network, and gradually to put more propose more features within this framework. So your Dogecoin ID can somehow integrate with Lens. Make sure that your data is somehow replicated in Lens and encrypted maybe by mass network, and got a feed maybe by RS3, and then you have a profile page like so, or a nice ENS whatever by 5. So that's the ideal future, right? And at least now, by Elon acquisition, we got more Web3 member attend that, right? Binance have like $500 million in this acquisition. I'm really curious to see what's gonna be the direction. But any direction is better than the current Twitter.
What's interesting is in the Web2 space, maybe all of the speakers today were thinking about building something on their own and compete with each other. And in the Web3 social space, as we're building the decentralized networks, we're all kind of huddling and building out the different components to make this a more open ecosystem. So I think it's really interesting.
I think that's also super cool, and one of the things that excites me a lot, because as we've seen, like when you tie Web2 platforms back to their incentives, the incentives are to keep you on their platform as long as possible, so that you can maximize time spent, they can capture more data, so they can sell that data to advertisers. And what does that look like when you remove those incentives, and instead you give the actual creators or users ownership over their own social graph and social network? It means that if I'm a developer building a social application, I'm not optimizing for time spent necessarily or these things. I'm trying to create the best possible experience for my ideal user. And so when you have that, it means that it's just like different incentives that allow you to collaborate socially with other people who might be building alongside. Like in my day-to-day, as we're talking about Lens and I'm talking to the product team about where we're at in the roadmap, I'm also talking to so many different projects that run the gamut from music to, DAO tooling to, you name it. And it's really that open dialogue that allows us to figure out new ways we can leverage Lens we hadn't thought of yet, as well as ensure that there's clear communications so that people can leverage Lens as they see fit. And so I just think it's like a totally different paradigm for how new apps.
Right. Hello?
Did I cut out?
Yeah, I think Brad, you got cut out for like 2 seconds.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, but I do want to circle back to the point about advertisers later, because they played a huge role. They played a huge role in Web2 social networks, and things have changed up a lot, and we'll love to hear your take on that later. But I also want to get input from Shun and Shugo on how you're thinking about this acquisition and in terms of like how it impacts your roadmap. Anything on that?
You can go. You can go.
Okay. I guess like the definition of like the next generation social network, or a Web3 social, as we so call it, is to take a quote from Tom from Prism, is that like Web3 social is about like what you do on the blockchain, what you not what you say, or like post content on Web3. And I kind of think that that's true. Like I think like protocols like Lens here is doing like a fantastic job, kind of like making sure that like it's a good UX, kind of like providing like a gas free experience of like for users being able to like actually like present and like own content on the blockchain. And I guess like these activities will like amount to multiple like networks spanning cross-chain and multiple protocols eventually doing this to a point that like your feed, or in a sense maybe like the feed for in a sense for RSS3 is not just one protocol but rather an aggregation of all of these. And so the social layer, social graph, and like the content is like it encompasses like all of Web3 is kind of like what I'm thinking about. So in that sense, I guess it's a good thing for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Shugo, do you have something to add too?
Yeah, so like maybe like the Twitter will decentralize. Maybe like we can use the Twitter more like freely, right? So like for example, like maybe like I'm thinking like the pie round picture would be like really fit to the like header of Twitter profile. So maybe I just talk with like Suji about this. Like maybe it can be do that. So like so maybe like I want to integrate the files some feature into Twitter. Maybe the process would be changed. Like so if the Twitter still centralized, like it's gonna be hard to like negotiate with them. Like but like it's gonna be more protocol like the things like it will be easier like not only our project my project but also maybe right or like the other project can be integrated with Twitter uh like without permission like uh it'll be so cool actually I think but like I don't know like the like more detail like the roadmap of the Twitter so yeah, I wanna see the like yeah. I keep um like yeah. I still thinking about the things. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Shugo.
Yeah, if like Twitter was decentralized, the composability and interoperability, so they say, will be like I think will benefit like all of us in this space in the sense
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
like any like other protocols will be able to build on top of it, others will be able to integrate it, and with so forth. Yeah. And I think Shugo and I share like the same vision for this in a sense.
Yeah. 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 Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I think on that note, we were talking more about like building out a decentralized Twitter or like this kind of this decentralized version of it. I'm curious, like in this process of building like your own project and seeing in the ecosystem, what are some of the major challenges that you see today for Twitter itself to like self-revolutionize, or like for the challengers, the folks that are here today to challenge to shift this paradigm? What are some of the key bottlenecks that you've seen so far?
I have one, which is one that we're all probably pretty familiar with, which is around following people. You know, you have to follow someone on so many different platforms to keep up with everything they're doing. It's super fragmented. Again, back to the incentives. Those platforms want to keep you on their platform. They don't make it easy for you to migrate your audience or jump to another platform. And they, as I saw, TikTok only reluctantly allow you to have your link in bio, in your profile. TikTok creators demanded that they have a link to their Instagram, and there's literally like an Instagram button on many TikTok profiles, which these companies, from my perspective, are not thrilled to be doing. The thing is, like, if you're a creator, you're not necessarily a TikTok creator or a YouTube creator or a Twitch streamer. You're a creator, and you distribute your content for different audiences, or often for similar audiences on different platforms. So the going line, I think we talk about a lot at Lens, is like when you follow someone, you should only have to follow them once. And that doesn't mean you're just getting access to everything they've ever done. It's up to them to decide what they share. And many people have more than one identity, and that's fine. But for whatever that identity is, one follow should be the norm, and you can just access that content wherever it may be as a result.
Absolutely. I think just like how to still like while in a decentralized ecosystem, like have that kind of follower like asset, which is like critical in the current Web2 social space, something that we think about as well. What about other speakers? What are some of the, I think, key challenges that you've seen so far?
Yeah, I think one thing is the lack of infrastructure, right? So just for example, Mask, when we do this, because we want to do the encryption, right? And after encryption, you definitely need a place to store your encrypted content, especially for multimedia content. So it was 2020, early 2020, we just reached out to Arweave and Protocol Lab, Filecoin, and ends up we reached partnership with both. And we first start some token with Arweave, then the file token, so we can just provide a middleware to do the uploading and downloading, right? It's really cool. It just install Mask and drag and drop your files. And then the next problem we realized, like once you have maybe few dozens, maybe not really a lot, like people uploading, you can jam there because there's no decentralized CDN. Because the CDN was, I believe they're using Cloudflare is one of their partner, and they are just trying to maybe censor some content or just not trying to do the free job with decentralized storage. And obviously, Twitter, Facebook, they're using a lot of CDN solutions that's way better. So we have to find the decentralized CDN, and we're lucky that time one of our friend Mason is doing this job, and it becomes more strategic investor in Mason and integrated solution there. But then, okay, how to really make a database? Because when you write the data, you don't want to write it different, in different times, in different like write different files, 5 files in 5 times. You want to write it in 1 times and write in like a SQL-like database. There was no database like that. At least for now, I think we hired a Quill. We probably help them and participate in their partners. But they're just very early. I'm really looking for some solution like that. When you want to read that in a structuralized database. I know Lance is doing a very cool job, especially for the following follower relationship. And Artistry is doing a cool job for the feed. But there's many things more complicated than that, and we're just like, okay, probably need another 1 or 2 staff doing that. So I think that's the difficult part of Web3 social, that every protocol should not do the whole job. Every protocol is gonna be like the money Lego of DeFi. You have the AMM, you have the DEX, you have the Curve, you have the Compound, Avi, different things, and you have different kind of degen box to make this seem much more complicated. I think the social can be way more complicated. You have different layers, you put them together. And Mass is in the middle, and we become very busy just to deal with the whole thing. And I think that still it's just probably 20% finished, let's say the infra, or maybe like 15% finished. Especially considering if you want to onboard like 1 million people there, it's still quite early. And one common mistake, one common thing founder were likely to do is to do all the things themselves using a centralized way. But I feel once you do that in a centralized way, it's really easy involving Cloudflare, involving AWS. It's super hard to really decentralize that. That's the thing I learned from the DeFi and then from the other early Ethereum or other blockchain experiments, right? So that's the key barrier. Just straight, hey, we know this is fragile, right? But we have to put them all together and make sure it's not centralized and gradually make it more and more decentralized. Yeah, I'd say that's one of the barriers we encounter.
Yeah, thank you, Suji. Definitely, we're still in a pretty early phase of building out this entire ecosystem. Yeah, any other speakers would like to comment on this? Yeah, Joshua, I know because RSS3 has been building out a lot of different, I guess, modules and services. Like, what are some of the key challenges that you see today for building out like a decentralized social network?
I think it's content itself, or social graph itself. I think all these different things are what makes Twitter so strong, or any of these centralized services so strong. They have gated your data, gated your friends, gated your fans, gated your content, so that it's extremely hard for users to just jump onto a different platform and start to compose and socialize on a different one. Especially if you're centralized, more or less it's gonna be a little bit slower. It could cost gas, and it's just not as what we call like as mature, right? So for like a normal user, like a general user, it's kind of hard for now. We expect it, and we hope that it's much easier for us to attract normal users, and attract them not in a pure financial way. We prefer them to actually know more about the importance of why they need to they need to own their own content, own their own social graph. But it's gonna take some time. I would say, like, for now, the major challenge is that RSS does aggregate and distribute data and content, and we see this objective problem, which is very few content compared to centralized are now composed on a decentralized manner, and those that are created and composed on a decentralized manner, they really don't have such high average quality for now, because a lot of people are doing so because they are trying to get futuristic airdrops. So I'd say we lack a lot of content, we lack a lot of data, but it feels like we're on the right track.
Yeah, thank you, Joshua. Yeah, I also saw like some people were requesting the mic. We'll have like Q&A session in the end, but also if there's stuff that you want to share, we also encourage you to kind of jump in. This is it's a late night discussion, so we can be more relaxed. Shun or Shugo, do you have anything you want to share about like building out your projects, the key challenges that you've seen in the space?
I guess like the definitely like the API is a challenge. Every dApp kind of has to go through indexing the entirety of the blockchain if they want to do something which I find that's like a super obvious like problem to solve. All the apps are building their own indexers, which I kind of find it super funny, but also is one signal that we're super early in that sense. I guess the fact that RSS3 is like developing their own project, fully open source, is kind of like a really good sign for like the Web community as a whole. So other projects could integrate it easily. But yeah, as a dev, if I wanted to do it's the coring like across contracts or like the social graph, because the entirety of like the what do you do on chain is inherently part of like the social graph. So that part has been kind of a pain in the ass, I would say. But I guess the ecosystem is moving fast.
Yeah, for sure. I think the social graphs has been something that mentioned by a few. Yeah, Shugo, go ahead.
So so for like the maybe like the social graph, social like the data would be also like gonna be like multi chain, right? So right. So actually, like we have tried to build on Stocknet, like from January and March, like to verifying users on chain activity history data. So we have to read the contract to from L1 or like from Polygon or like other chains. So and it's a little bit hard to get the data from the out of sources. So that's why like maybe that kind of like data layer would be more important, like I think. So maybe that kind of things is also interesting topic. Maybe because like the maybe people have the like not only using one chain but also different chain, right? So that's why like there like some like the data for like the showing your like someone chain identity stuff or is not only in Israel but also maybe in the Polygon like on the optimism like other chains. So that's why like the like controlling data layer will be like that'll be more like the interesting and like the really important thing for creating like the kind of like social metaverse like for my project. So yes, that kind of thing like maybe I can add here.
Yeah, it's all. I think it's all on our mind. Yeah. So I think I want to. We touched upon this a little bit in terms of like with decentralized networks, maybe like things are like getting the processing time is slower, is longer. There may be more friction. So I want to ask from the user's point of view, like what do you think? How would the decentralization of social networks change user experience? We definitely see a lot of the value add for social networks to be decentralized, but from like what users' point of view who are very used to social networks, how would that change with this decentralization? What would be like your ideal vision for user experience in Web3 social?
For me, it looks like, we talk about this a lot from the perspective of a creator, but I also like to think about it from the perspective of a consumer. For creator, it's you can use any of the publicly or privately available tools and services and products that we all know and love, as well as new ones that don't exist yet. But as a consumer, there's something else that I think is interesting, which is being rewarded or at least recognized for attribution. So one problem today is if, let's say, someone in here tweets something and then I retweet it, and because of my network, I drive a lot of viewers to now go and follow the original poster who I retweeted. Twitter knows that, and they know how many people I drove to that person, but like that person and I don't know that. And I would like to know that as a creator, who is promoting my content, who is driving most value to me, my brand, my content. And on the flip side, as a consumer, I would love to get attribution to be recognized for my favorite authors or creators for having supported their work. And one cool thing about that, where you can take a step further, which is part of the way Lens works, since everything is powered by NFTs and you can literally track attribution, is I can be compensated for driving new viewers to to my favorite creators. So if my favorite creator posts content and I drive, I can attribute 100 new follows to me. They can say, hey, I'll pay you $100 per follow I can attribute to you. Or even putting the financial incentives aside, just the attribution of saying, look, I am a tastemaker, I am a curator, is really exciting to me, particularly when you think about the fact that there are so many more consumers of content than there are actual creators of it. So that's one thing I'd love to see, is when everyone is their own tastemaker, and they're able to build a career or brand off of that themselves, in whatever ways they see fit.
Yeah, imagine in Web3, me retweeting memes and curating memes can make me a really good creator, and maybe even some financial incentives to come with it. That'd be awesome. Yeah, I'm personally a Tiny Dinos fan, so as you can see, I'm excited for that vision too. Yeah, any other speakers? Suji?
By the way, can you pardon the question? I was lost in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking about what would be the ideal, I guess, user experience. How would the user experience change in a Web3 decentralized social network?
I feel like it's pretty much like the same thing. You know, I think the Web2 and Web1 did improve a lot in user experience. Mainly due to the new computational device, like we have a mobile phone and we have laptop. But in the end, when you talk about user experience, is or the browsers and or the same application design. But the key difference is like how you use it, right? The Web3 is pretty much the same thing because in most Web2 apps, you won't assume you were able to send money to everyone. So the product manager or the UI UX don't really think about this. Because when you look into, let's say, Twitter, when you dive into the current Twitter tipping functionalities, the whole design is assuming this thing cannot done by integration of protocols. This thing should be done by copy pasting and go to another app. That's the way of design, that's thinking of design, right? And when you go to Instagram, when they ask you to connect or share on Twitter, they're assuming this is another application, this is another work garden platform, and they're just sharing this Instagram tweet posts on tweets. And that's the problem. It's not really just say, hey, we don't use tweets or we don't use inks, we don't do picture posting anymore. But it's about like how you view different things, right? And when we design different things on Mask, like just for example, the donating functionality, partner with Gitcoin, we just assume you see someone on Twitter or Facebook that was talking about the public good, and you want to donate right now, you want to donate right after you see that. So we did a lot of optimization and just click donate, and you just pop out with your MetaMask and choose your best layer 2 or maybe layer 1, and it goes through this the contract or address provided by Gitcoin. There's no server in between, and the whole thing just went through. And when we integrate RS3, it's pretty much the same thing. You have the Web3 feed, and when I was browsing on Twitter, I'm not only interested in Web2 feed. I'm not only interested in what my friend is tweeting about. I'm also interested in, hey, he's tweeting about he's buying an Azuki, but he's not really buying because his address is not moving, or actually he's selling, he's lying, right? You're interested about that. So we're interested in integrating the Web3 feed into the Twitter feed and make it very smooth. So that's another way of design thinking. When I talked to 5 people, I was pitching them that in the header of Twitter, also for Instagram and Facebook, many social network you have a header picture. You have your PFP picture and your header picture, which is like your background picture. In your header picture is actually your home, your metaverse house. Your PFP is your metaverse identity, and your PFP can walk into your metaverse house in the background picture and maybe do some random thing, have a party, and you own some pull-up during the party. So that's the thing I think gonna happen, right? It's more about like, hey, just design in a much more open way. Think that like, hey, this header picture is gonna be a stop. This click button gonna be another stop. This checking functionality gonna be pull up or many other protocols to do the whole story. That's the different thinking, and I think that in the end, the user experience is gonna be pretty much similar. I still use tweet like functionalities or Instagram functionalities, but I do own my data, and when you unsatisfied, the key is when you unsatisfied with the platform or the functionalities, you can just say, hey, dude, I want to do something on top. You can change it. Well, that's the key difference, I think. The more people change it, the better it's going to become, right? Yeah.
Yeah, kind of having the possibility of a more personalized social network experience. It's something really exciting, and can be built by a lot of the third-party innovators. Any other comments and thoughts from our speakers?
To hop in, yeah, definitely. I do think like the approach that Mask is taking, where like the Web3 and the feed also coincides with your Twitter, is kind of like a super like user friendly in terms of like onboarding users. Because like for like a normal Web3 newbie, I would say like all these like contracts, like gas, like chains are like super complicated. Like there's such like a probably like a gap between those who like are in it and those who are not. And so I think like the like bridging the gap uh is important. And in terms of the UX, like maybe yeah, I think a good approach is that what Mask is doing.
Yeah, like let me add something. Like actually, like if people can own the they own the social graph and the social asset, actually that would be so cool because like the people don't need to. It's like the connect wallet, right? So the wallet is gonna be your status and your like social assets. So that's why like the maybe the what the Lens protocol is doing is really cool thing actually. That's why people don't need to like the follow and they like some maybe follow the people's profile from the scratch, right? For each application. So maybe that'll be like the really cool like user experience like in the Web3 social. And also like so that's why like the for example like the if so like Instagram will disappear, like the people will lose their social assets. So like actually if you can own your like social assets, you can deliver from the like the like the to the from the like any dApps to the any dApps. So yeah, actually I think there is like a huge like different from the web to social and the web to social. I think.
Yeah, I would also add to that. Um, I've spoken with Shugo before about Phi, which is great because it's a great way to visualize like on-chain activity, which in like a fun and approachable way. Um, Part of the challenge here is like, we talk about all these different apps and dApps that we use and talk about how Web3 and crypto is composable and interoperable,
Yeah.
which is true, but I don't think we're doing it enough yet, at least not in ways outside of like many DeFi contexts. The hard part for as someone on the growth team, like the challenge for me, and like what is the challenge with the Web3 social graph is the first step is getting people to try it out and to use it, and that's a circular problem where we need people building interesting projects and products that users will want to interact with, whether you're a creator or consumer, and then we also want people to come try them out, and to bring their followers with them, and so as we're launching Lens quite soon, I'm thinking through that a lot, and it starts with finding people who have sort of one foot in Web3 and one foot in like traditional media, entertainment, and culture, like to get creators to use Lens and the apps built on top of it. We're going to go with it. Creators really respond to three things in my mind, which is can this help me monetize? Can this help me grow my following? Or can this help me deepen my relationship with my existing followers? And ideally, we can show like what I'll spend a lot of my time on is showing and showcasing these amazing products and apps folks are building on top of Lens that help creators do just that, because they're not going to try out a new app for fun, or as a favor, or at least if they do, that's not the right way to go about it.
Yeah, so that's true. Like you mean right? You mean like if people like the like if you like make your like social graph like the variable, like you need to build like the bunch of like the interesting like the dApps on that like social graph, right? Social like the network, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wanted to ask obviously just not to show, but what Shigo's doing with Fi is like super interesting. Like it's a completely like new approach to taking to as Shigo says, like visualizing the blockchain, and like it's definitely a like different and like new approach for sure. In like Brad, I want to ask you um for like as Lens, like do you like what is your guys' stance against like how to like onboard like normal users to Lens? Like I've looked at the docs, and the fact that like you don't, it doesn't cost gas to post content or follow. It's just, I think it's super like in terms of like UX, it's just fascinating. Is but like I've also like partially looked into code, and there's a lot of like API that's kind of like already like built out like fully already. So my question is, is like Len's stance like kind of like is it more of like a composable approach where like projects like Fi and us can kind of like build on top of Lens, or is it more of so like we have these like financial primitives that are already built in, this is what we expect for like kind of like dApps to
So
extend.
it's a great question. The answer is it's sort of both. We have we've invested a lot in our website with the developer docs and the developer garden. We have an API. We have modules that we think are like, the whole point is to make these things more accessible, given things we know people are going to find valuable. So one good example of that is the follow module. If I have a profile, anyone, and I can decide what that logic might be for someone to follow me. So I can say anyone can follow me, meaning you don't even need a Lens profile, you just need a wallet. I can say no one can follow me, I'm totally private, or I can say you have to pay to follow me, and that payment can be any sort of logic I want. It can be $5 in USDC a month. It can be you have to hold a certain NFT of mine, or you have to be one of my first 1,000 followers. You can set sort of whatever logic you want. Now to answer your question, like we've sort of tried to balance the two, right? Like we think that this is a highly flexible thing, like module, but you're totally welcome to go customize it yourself and fork it. But for those who want to get a little quicker to sort of the most common use cases we can think of, we have the API and the modules for that as well.
Yeah, that is that is fascinating. The docs are so well built out. Like it's crazy.
I wish I could take credit for them. I didn't write any of them myself, but I talk about them a lot. So
no. Not to take anything away from you, but it's Thank you. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's a great discussion. I want to switch gears a little bit and then come back to I think what we discussed briefly earlier about kind of the economics in a decentralized model for social networks, and also where do advertisers or like brands even stand in this new era. I'm curious to hear the speaker's thoughts. How do you view like the economics? How would that work? When the social networks essentially maybe function more as a public utility. I know RSS3 has a staking mechanism now. So maybe Joshua, do you want to kick us off with how you think about this?
Just to make sure, like staking, what you mean, like our staking program, right?
I think I saw this. The news kind of came out recently about staking. So the broader question is, how do you think the economics would work out in a decentralized kind of model?
I think there's gonna be like a lot of different layers on this. So infrastructures are gonna still be monetizing or like charging for usages. I think some of the applications should be charging or monetizing throughout value-added services and experiences. And some of the underlying technologies or like the asset layer, those that are public chains and stuff, would be getting gas fees, of course. And of course, yes, we do have the staking mechanism. I think it's one of the ways for us to it's now called the pre-staking test run. So basically, it's kind of simulating what's going to happen when we have all the decentralized nodes ready. It's more like, for us, it's more like an incentive for people who just contribute to the network, right? It's more like an infrastructural way. But I think in more of a general perspective, Web3 socials should be monetizing in a more of an application favor, because infrastructures would be pretty similar to what happened before. But I think there is a lot of innovations that could be done in the front of experience and application, because you have these new um, financial infrastructures, whereas users can just pay you. I think one of the very interesting things is, I think it was Mark Henderson. He named the sort of like the economic circulation right now for the current Web2 world as the original sin. As you know, in the beginning of the internet, there was no way for you know platforms like Facebook or Twitter to monetize directly from users, so they have to sell users to businesses to monetize. But now you have these large amount of users that actually have access to these crypto currencies and assets, and there are a lot of services they can provide us. If you look at, of course, in the West, we have Facebook and Twitter and these kind of things that monetize heavily on advertising. But in platforms like QQ back in China, they have a huge amount of income coming from value-added services and selling digital assets. That was a time when digital assets was just something stored on their server. I think there's a whole lot of different potentials to be unlocked in Web3. That's my idea here.
Great. Thank you, Joshua. Any other speakers? And also, I'm just curious, like, do you think, where would these businesses or advertisers go in Web3? If you have any thoughts on that.
Actually, some thoughts on advertisers specifically. They're going to find ways. There will be advertisements in Web3, big picture. The difference is going to be who is monetizing off of that. As we know today, Web2 companies, like, we are the product. That's why these apps are free, and then our data is sold to advertisers. I don't see anything particularly wrong with giving a group or a creator the ability to decide they want to advertise as a monetization tool. It works really well. There's only becoming better and better tools for creators to understand who their audiences are and find brands and products that align with their own values and that they believe in. And the key is that it should be up to you to decide where and how your data is being used by advertisers, what data is shared with those of you or your followers, and then how much ads show up, right? Like, if some accounts, if you're like the Mr. Beast or something, you have a massive audience, so you may not put as many ads out as someone who's just starting out and might need the revenue more so. So I think it's not so much that ads are evil or ads are bad, but more that it should be up to individuals to decide even what ad inventories they want to choose from and have full control over how their data is used and to who it is shared with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very well put. I like advertising. I in some cases. So yeah, I think it's more so like having the agency to choose how our data is being used, and having the transparency is very important.
And to kind of like add on, like the fact that like the clients or dApps, to separate this to the premise of this argument that the data or the protocol and the dApps that are integrating this are different. Like probably like in Web3, like clients or dApps can are able to monetize off of the content because the content is rather public. So like for example, maybe one scenario of like Shugo's Fi could be that they could like sell like ads. I don't know if Shugo wants to do this. I don't know, but that is one possibility.
Yeah.
That
That's one
wasn't
option.
like
That's one option.
Yeah, one option. Yeah. So like the the fact that dApps have the power to do this is kind of like crazy, in a sense. It was not possible in Web2. So
Yeah. I do see like a a funny Elon Musk fake account requesting for Mike. I don't know if you have a question. I am gonna approve you, and if you have a question, go ahead. We're approaching kind of towards the end of the space. Looks like they're
सीधा है बात होगी सीधे
connecting.
बाल हल्ला मत और बाबू जूतिए बात होगी सीधे जो भी करेगा बात समझेगा अपना हाल जो भी करेगा बात समझेगा अपना हाल तीन तंत्र ही के
Oh, let's just him up.
Yeah. Oops. Yeah. Well, that was not a very clear question, but thank you for participating. And in a Web3 world, I hope we have ways to verify, like the real the reality, the realness of their identities. Yeah. Any like lingering thoughts on the economics of decentralized networks, things that we talked about? If not, I just want to like my last question, or maybe more of a something I'm curious about. Like, if you were to make one suggestion to Elon, on Twitter, like what would that be?
Powered by Lens. That might be a big ask. Or at least put a follow on Lens button in there. That would be my more reasonable ask, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, Dodge is fine, but just multi-chain, like, or at least assign everyone a cryptography ID, yeah. And yeah, maybe Lance Taylor. So, yeah, so that's probably gonna EVM chain, yeah.
Joshua, are you also trying to say something?
No, just saying, the adaptive lanes is gonna be helpful to most builders in Web3. Or I mean, like in general, if they adapt in any of these, decentralized infrastructure, it's gonna be pretty helpful for everyone. It doesn't really matter if it's Conning, if it's social networks, as long as it's open and centralized. They're gonna be innovations. They're gonna have a much more thriving ecosystem of applications. And yeah.
Absolutely.
From my side, I guess one token, and also like please put it on like a EVM compatible network.
You have all very, I think, practical, realistic roadmap for Elon. Need to take notes here. Yeah. Shugo, do you have anything you want to suggest to Elon?
Please integrate with Pi. No, sorry, yeah.
Should put that on as our cover photo.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And I feel like if Twitter were like ever run as a DAO, it would be a very bold experiment, and it probably would welcome, like make it a like much bigger economy. Yeah. Cool. I want to really just open the floor to our audience here. It's getting a little bit late, but thank you for sticking around. Do you have any questions for the speakers? Please request a mic. All right, we've got Afra. Afra, can you hear us?
Oh yeah. Sorry, I think the internet broke for a second. Yeah, I think really appreciate this conversation. For me, this is like the very permanent questions that regarding not only just free speech but also our definition of how internet affect our everyday life. I want to quote McLuhan, who's saying media is extension of human being. Media is extension of our human body and human mind. So I see Twitter is definitely like an extension of who I am. I'm just really curious, what's your vision of like, digital assets and Twitter, like maybe I would say in a smaller scope, maybe in the next 5 years, like how would you envision your product? And also want to say kudos to your amazing products. I'm definitely a big fan of Light.so and RSS3. I'm also looking forward to more like, applications on Lens protocol. Yeah.
Sorry, could you repeat that last part?
Yeah, I guess my question is, in a 5-year scope, how would you like envision your product?
It's a good question. As widely as possible, I'd hope, but I think it's important to remember that Lens it's not an app. It's not, and it's not meant to be the only thing. It's really meant to be the glue, the pipes between all of our other on-chain and hopefully, desired off-chain activity. I'm thinking specifically about like Web2 socials. There really is such a wide range of applications, and I'm excited to see, everything we've thought of so far. In terms of the modules, is just the beginning. I like to think of it similar to how I think of like TikTok in certain ways, which is, it's basically impossible to predict what the next trend on TikTok will be, but that with certainty that there's going to be trends and there's going to be new things that come up every day from the community of users, and that is going to be true and compoundingly true as we grow the Lens network and get more profile creates and more follows. So I'm really excited to see all of that come to life, and it's about to start. This is the final calm before the storm.
Yeah, thank you, Afra, for the question, and Brad for the answer. And we have Leslie here from the audience.
Hello everyone. This is Leslie. I work for a blockchain data analysis platform called Footprint Analytics. We know that on-chain data is important for tracking the market and analyze the projects in the field of DeFi and GameFi. And I wonder, what do you guys think about the chances of data in the way to Web3 social? And there's something in my mind, like the data about offering hot topics rate in the decentralized platform or the data of NFTs. Do you think data in the Web3 social is a good track for now? And when everything about social platform is on chain, is it valuable to analyze more of the data? And finally, what do you think on-chain data, or we can say the transparent data, will help in the way to Web3 social network? Thank you.
I think it's a really great question. I guess both Lens and RT3 or Phi, have a lot to talk. And from my perspective, I think a lot of things on Web3 social happen because we have those relatively transparent data on chain or somehow in Web3, right? No matter it's like you attending a metaverse using POAP, or you was wrapped by some like DJing project. that's all recorded on chain. And there's two huge problems. One is always the privacy, because it basically make you naked and then run away online. Web 0, Web 1 and Web 0. Actually, even Web 1, you got some kind of privacy. Actually, it's a huge privacy problem, but somehow people don't care right now, but doesn't mean that it's not really a big problem, right? That's one thing. Another thing, when we talk about social network, it's the compatibility, because there's so many different protocols out there. If you want to put them like social Lego, like money Lego, and it seems like they're competing each other in some way. It's way too early to compete, in my opinion. You don't need to have 5 different protocols for feed. You don't need to have 5 different protocols for what Lens trying to do. And even if you compete, it's better to make it compatible. What I mean compatible is, like, we know DeFi there's a lot of compatible ones, competing protocol like Sushi and Uni. They're using those like vampire pack to attract the AMM LPs. This is actually compatible. If you're competing, for example, if you're competing with Lens or other protocols, make it compatible. It's actually better. This is my suggestion for your question. And another part, the thing I'm worried about is with Facebook gradually using or Instagram or other like Web2 platform. Actually, I know several other 10 billion worth Web2 platform can integrate NFT very soon. So I think with them coming to the game, the relatively transparent social data in Web3 become a weapon, become a tool they can use, while their social graph is something we cannot use, right? So Facebook Instagram can recommend you a fancy car because you own 5 punk or like 2 punk. And they can recommend you something else based on your on-chain activity. While on the other side, the Web3 data guys, Web3 social guys like us, we don't really have access, or they're not refuse to open the Web2 world guide. That's a huge problem. Mask is trying to solve the problem little bit by little. Maybe we can integrate Lens. So when you follow someone on Twitter, you're actually also following someone on the Web3 using Lens protocol or using other compatible protocols. That's just my answer. I think like probably you guys have better, insight in different perspectives. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your reply. That was super inspired.
Yeah. Thank you, Leslie, for the question, and Suji for the very detailed answer. Do we have anyone else from the audience side with questions? I've seen some friends down there. All right. If not, I think we'll conclude the space in a little bit. Any last thoughts from the speakers? Anything you want to share on this topic? All right. In that case, we're approaching midnight here. Yeah, thank you all for our speakers for being here. And and thank you for all the great questions. Yeah, stay tuned. Follow Mass Network Twitter for our future series. We welcome any feedback. This is our kind of experiment to have more of a both fun and in-depth conversation about how to build and grow the Web3 social space. Yep. All right. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Good day.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Great to talk with
Have
you
a good
guys.
one and
Thank
have
you.
a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.